This is part 3, the final part of our walkthrough of StoryMaps, the tool we'll be using for project 2. I'm going to go over some of this rather quickly, so if you need more help on getting started with the very basics, please make sure you watch parts 1 and 2 of the StoryMaps walkthrough. In the last few parts, I showed you how to use the preset template called Sidecar. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Guided Map Tour and talk a little bit about the differences between these two templates. So Guided Map Tour, as you have probably already read in the ArcGIS blog, is a little more centered on the map as opposed to on the text. So the options for where to place your text and how to connect them with the map are very different and might not be as useful depending on how you want to set up your project and how you want to make certain things visible or not. So here we start very similarly to what we did before. We start with a title. You're going to come up with a better title, I'm sure. You can do a short introduction or subtitle under here. This can be your own paraphrase or summary of the Last Will and Testament. It can be an overview of Project 2 and its goals. It can even be a sentence or two about the argument of your map. Much like before, you can also add a cover image in here to make your map a little nicer to look at. There we have it. And then we're going to scroll down to this, which is the beginning of our presentation. It already preloads a map, but we're going to need to put a spot on this map of where we want our reader to get started. So the very first thing that we want to do is think about whether slide 1 is a slide of the first stop on your Whitney tour, if you will, or if it's just a map of London. So it's kind of like another cover image getting us settled into the location. So depending on what you want to do, you're going to go to Add Location. When you search by location, here I'm going to search for London. I can click Add to Map. I can customize the zoom level so that it's actually precisely at the depth that I want my readers to look at it. And then click Add Location. And here we go. This is the beginning of our tour, if you will. I can add an image or video in here and then add a title, give an overview of what this is. Here I might say something about, for instance, 16th century London and the historical overview. This is not required, but it's a sense of where you might get started with this particular template. Or, as I mentioned, you get started with your very first stop on the map. Either way, when you click New Slide, you're going to move on to another point on the map. And it will be connected to this first stop. So if I look at St. Paul's Cathedral again, and add that to my map, zoom in as close as I find necessary, click Add Location. You'll notice that from the first slide to the second slide, this moves like a tour. So it's a visual fly-through of the different areas that I want to set up. In here, I can add my illustration of St. Paul's that I had saved on my computer. And then I can add my title. I can copy and paste the overview that I already set up in my research for my storyboard and put that on here. And then I can continue on adding more and more locations as the map continues to fly over. So I add one more just to show you how this works. Here I'm going to add Watling Street. And again, as I mentioned in the other videos, because I'm using these two examples, I would highly encourage you to find other spots for your own project instead of beginning with these that are the sample ones for our videos. So if I want to zoom in a little further and make sure that the other spot is visible still, I can add this location here. I'm going to add my image about Watling. And then here I will put my title. And I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste my notes from my storyboard. Okay. And now if I don't like the way this map looks, much like we did before, we can actually change the look of this map and have it look however we want it to look. You might know that some versions are not as useful. Like for instance, I think this map is quite pretty, but it's ocean forward, which means that once you zoom in too far to land, it all looks the same and it's not quite nice to look at. So click around until you find one that you like. And then when you click done, all of your maps will look the same. Now, if you remember, this is a little bit different from what we did with Sidecar, because in Sidecar, each map is its own unique image. So you can have different maps on your slideshow look different. If that's something that appeals to you, you might want to go to you might want to go to Sidecar instead. So when we preview this presentation, we can see what our reader will look at. They will look at a map that will move across locations as they view information about each of these different spots. So it'll feel like a walking tour, but one that's virtual. So this might be quite appealing to you depending on how you want to format your work and depending on where you want your readers to look at the information or the research that you have. The main difference here is that because we still want our readers to have our references to show that we did our research and that we only used images that are in the public domain or in the Creative Commons or that we are using because we're doing a fair use project, we want to have an added section here called Continue Your Story. And here's where you can add text, buttons, images, or even standalone maps aside from your walkthrough slideshow. So here, for instance, you might want to add buttons with direct links to the references. You might want to have sort of a works cited page down here that has information about each of the images in each of the slides and connects your reader to other things. You might even have one particular map that you want to create with arrows between spots if you'd like. So this is the place where you'll be able to be a little more playful and add more information than the preset map allows you to do. So there are, as you can see, advantages and disadvantages to each of these. Personally, for my own preferences, I think that Sidecar might be a little more useful for our project, but that is not to discourage you from using Map Tour, which is a very beautiful look at actually feeling like we're walking or flying over London. So there's a huge advantage to this too. Both of these are options for Project 2, and you want to think about which one serves best the kinds of visuals that you find most appealing. When you're ready with your map and you're all done for the final draft, you'll be able to click Everyone under Publish, and once you publish your story, StoryMap will double check that everything looks correct, and once everything is correct, you get this final version on here. You'll still be able to edit this, so when we do peer review, you don't have to worry about this being the final version. You'll be able to copy the URL and then paste it on Blackboard to share with your peers. And that's our overview of StoryMaps. If you start playing with it and you find problems that weren't addressed in any of these videos, please bring them up to troubleshooting times so that we can talk further about how to best use this tool to our advantage.